You're tuned into RX Radio. Movement prescribed. Brought to you by Prescript.com. A personalized approach to keeping you healthy and making your best even better. Your hosts, Dr. Jordan Shallow and Dr. Jordan Ginta.
Oh God. So it's like, yeah. The thing is, you message a DM like that, it's like that fucker's coming back and he's bringing friends.
Oh yeah.
Dude, there's a fuck, what is he? He's a podiatrist in Miami. Have you been hit up by him?
I've been hit up by the podiatrist.
There's a podiatrist in Miami who's got a thing for like meatheads, and I think he must like follow gym locations or like search gym locations, and he just shoots a shot. And we had one of a friend of the podcast ended up, and it's always
on the tape.
But dude, the sales pitch is weird because he's a podiatrist, but the sales pitch is always a deep leg massage. That's a hard no for me. I'm not a massage guy, period.
Oh yeah, no,
I can't. And people don't get it.
It's a miss for me. It's a big miss.
Because what it is with me with the massage is like for it to be, I don't want to say effective, but like I feel like I got to tip more after. Because like I've had one once, and it was like I could feel the beads of sweat, and I heard once like this noise, like the fuck was that? And I look, the lady had her foot on the wall. Yeah, I was like, okay, this is not the flat fee, right?
No.
Like I'm getting taxed on the back end of this. Like we're done here. But yeah, the DM inquiry for those of you just joining this stream of consciousness, I got a DM about leggings and tights. It's like you can't answer that. Like I like to answer direct messages, but like. That if that's what you're coming out of the gate with, it's getting worse.
I feel like with the tights DM, like you said, he comes back with friends.
Right.
It's like Clockwork Orange.
Oof,
it's a bunch of dudes chugging milk at a cod piece coming after you. And like that's not a fight in a dark alley I'm inviting.
Yeah. Anything ever gets described as like, hey, do you know Clockwork Orange? It's not a good thing.
Yeah, it's a pass for me.
Yeah, no, it's I've got actually you were with it was in Calgary?
The crushing?
The crushing email?
Oh, crushing is good.
That's a weird it's just I don't know. It's so funny when I was sponsored by Universal and there was a girl who was telling me about like sanctioned wrestling matches that were like legit, like she and this is her words, like legit, right? Where they get together and they're like highly supervised. And when I think of these things, I think in the same way that remember in Old School where they bring like the merry-go-round and the fucking animals and the guy's got the tranquilizer gun? I feel like that's how these wrestlers, because it's guys who want to wrestle muscular girls. And there's like a dude who saw a marketplace for it. It was like, okay, let's make this extremely safe. Let's do background checks. Let's get these guys like, look, sign here and here. And I just imagine there's a fucking guy sitting there, like Stifler sitting there with a tranquilizer gun.
Sure.
Just if Buddy gets too squirrely in the cage, he's just going to put his fucking dart in his neck. And it's like the amount, like the weird shit that people get into.
Oh.
But they're comfortable enough just like shooting their shot. It's like I almost admire it. Like going into a DM and seeing, hey, you gotten some weird ones.
Oh, dude, I've got erotic personal training. Hey, man, can you do me a favor?
Yikes.
And me being Canadian, I'm like, yeah, what is it, dude?
Absolutely.
What do you want? Some money? I'll send it to you. Can you carry me on your back for a mile?
Oh, that's a fucking haul, man.
And I was like, yeah, come on, not on the first date, man. That's a big ask. A mile?
That's on your back is a little bit.
Like I'm getting 1,500 steps a day here. You want me to toss a smaller adult man on an already small adult man's back, carry a mile down the road?
That's
crazy?
A mile. That's what, 1,600, 1,500 meters? Or no, 1,500 meters.
Yeah, and here's another story. So I got a crazy DM message prior to DMs existing on Instagram. This was a real life ask. That was crazy. So we got to tell this story. So my buddy Mason, who does all my tattoos, he used to work in this area of Toronto that I now live in. It's near Parkdale. And I was getting a coffee once. And there was a guy there, and he was in fishnets and a small Emily tank top from Hot Topic for our American listeners. And he had very bloodshot eyes. So I was waiting for my coffee and being polite. I was like, hey, man, how are you? And he's like, oh, I'm doing pretty good. and he asked what I did, and I explained. I was like, I'm a carpenter, actually. I'm building the building across the street. And I don't know why this was a good idea in my mind, but I went, what do you do?
It's $1 million question,
and
right?
staring at him, it's like, you don't need to know.
Right.
And he told me that he's into underwater fellatio.
That's a new one.
But he does it in a hot tub, and hence why his capillaries are burst.
So this guy's S&D for so long.
Underwater.
He's getting the bends. He's coming up.
The bends. He's popping capillaries. And I went, that's a fucking niche. And he went, he's like, it is a niche. But what sets me apart, and I was like, dude,
Let me stop you right
there's
there.
about 2 football fields between you and everyone you've ever told this to. He goes, well, I offer accoutrements like Hennessy and fine nuts. And then I went.
So this guy's coming up with the charcuterie
Yeah,
board? Is that it?
pull it up with the Henny and the nuts. And I went, I don't need to ask what kind of fine nuts he offers because I don't need to see him.
Yeah.
And that was my experience at conversations you don't need to have with people you don't need to know.
Right.
Which is hence the DM slide.
That is, yeah. The DM is literally Queen in Bathurst in Toronto. That's the DM. If you've ever been a Queen in Bathurst, it's like whenever anyone talks to you unsolicited, it's not going to be good.
You know where they're coming through. Like when you get if those of you, and a lot of you do, you have like the business Instagram that sends the requests.
Right. Oh.
And you always get the request, and you go, I don't know if I'm clicking on this. And you do, and you never want to.
No, the best is when Instagram blurs the image for your safety.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, that's the elephant graveyard in your Pride Rock.
The elephant trunk graveyard.
It's like, look, anything the light touches on a post or something, that's fine. That's mine. But this message request, once that hits 100 plus, I might as well just put a brick over that door and just fucking implode it. Like, I'm never going in there. There are people who've messaged me so many times that I can never answer them now.
Oh, yeah.
It's like I just got to seal off this part of the spaceship, and it's just got to go. It's just got to go off into oblivion. Like, it's every day it's something different, and every day I never get used to it.
No.
Like normalizing that like, I don't know. I understand to a certain degree perversions.
Sure.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not clicking every related link. Like this looks like a rabbit hole. Like I'm gonna have to clear my search history after this one. I don't got time for this shit. But just the rate and frequency in which people are inquiring about weirder and weirder things, dude. The purchasing of used clothing that I've definitely sweat in.
Oh, that's a good one.
That's a cottage industry. Are you kidding me? like I could be rocking like Versace socks every day just because of people wanting to buy foot pictures. I don't get the feet. Not my thing.
No, I've seen my own feet, and it doesn't make me come. But so there's a big thing going on for a while. A friend of mine never got intertwined with it, but requests for used gym socks.
Yeah.
That's a big one. The used gym sock.
Yeah, when I was training at a Boss, like a lot of powerlifters adopted the training in compression shorts thing.
Oh.
Not a big fan, but like Dan spearheaded that initiative.
But Dan can wear whatever he wants.
Well, when you got fucking 40-inch quads and you're pulling 400 kilos, it's like, all right. But the inquiries for, used gym equipment. The weird thing is the people who follow through with it. Like, I could never see myself at a post office and filling out the customs form and going, what is it? It's my dirty socks. Like, that's not a PayPal transaction that's ever going to happen.
And that's where I look at the situation. And I don't fetish shame the asker, but I look differently at the guy who, like you said, the guy who agrees to it.
Right.
You want to shoot your shot and be like, dude, send me your skid marks. Weird. But it's cool, man. If you're the guy who's like, deal, how much? $50? You don't need that $50.
No.
Because at some point in your life, it's like somebody said to me, they're like, hey, don't ever shy away from making $100 because at some point in your life, you're going to think, I needed that $100. At some point in your life, you're going to think back and go, I never needed that $50.
And you know when that is? When the white unmarked van comes up next to you when you're walking down the street. You're like, oh, fuck, I bet you this has something to do with the skid marks in the DM. Yeah, it's I'm trying to think of what the greatest DM of all time that I've gotten is.
I think that crushing one was pretty good.
The crushing was pretty bad. That in a weird way, that was like I made it. It's like you made it.
Oh
now.
yeah.
You've somehow ascended to the ranks where people want you to just hug them. I never inquired about the details. Again, I don't necessarily like you fetish shame, but at the same time, it's like I'm not inquiring a second. Oh, you know what? Total lie. Did I tell you?
Oh, no. Here we
go. Dude.
I can't.
No, this is the greatest of all. For me, this was the weirdest. And this was semi-recently, and I don't want to like implicate myself, although I guarantee you somehow I'm going to get in shit for this. I had a chick message me, and it's like you don't know if it's real or not. And the message simply stated, my husband said it was okay if you slept with me.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I'm not engaging in this any further. So like it somehow ended up in my normal inbox and not in my request. It didn't end up in the elephant graveyard. So I opened it, and then it's like Instagram has a thing where you've seen it. And it's like, well, like you don't pursue this. This is not a thing that you don't pull on this you don't pull on this thread. The next thing that was sent was a video from the husband saying that he was going to pay for my flight out to his wife. And I was like, I had to sit with that one. I was like, this is where we're at. This is 2021 in a DM.
Yeah, it's Mad Max, Enter the Cuckoldome.
I don't think I went on Instagram. You could probably find it where like I had a string, like I try and post every day. I had a string of like 4 days where I just would pick up my phone and was like, and I just like, I can't. If that's what's waiting on the other end of this fucking thing, I'm out. I'm done.
Yeah,
that was by far the worst.
Yeah, it's a wild west of that, bicycle spokes, people shooting their shot. Like it's just a jungle in there.
Well, the weird thing now, and this is something that I think is rightfully so. Like it's a good law to have in there, but there's such indemnification around like revenge porn laws.
Yes,
which is huge, and I think that's a good thing to have because you don't want to be. I've never sent a dick pic in my life. Like just getting that on the record. But I know people who that's their go-to. That's their move. I don't know if they should be forever punished for that. So I like the idea that exists, but I just can't. I don't know what it is.
I think it's a strong initial hand to play.
Yeah. Where do you go from there? It's got to be downhill. You don't have anything stronger than that. Or if you do, I don't want to know about it.
Well, that's the thing. Like, if that's not the strongest play you have, like, is it your butthole?
Is that the be-all, end-all?
And, like, I don't know where it goes. Like, if that's your launching pad, like, is it the taint next?
It's nipples, dick, pussy, butthole.
Hold on.
Whoa.
Wait, that
Lundy ripped that off too quick.
It just says, well, I need a footnote citation on this.
That's the law.
It's common knowledge.
You got Snapchat?
No.
Then you don't get it.
I can't do Snapchat.
Nipples, dick, pushy, butthole.
Bingo.
So that's
whose butthole? That's the real question.
Right, and there's not like a fingerprint, does it? That could be anyone's.
Yeah.
Yikes. That's I that's good to know. This might be the most valuable thing we've ever offered our listeners. You got it?
Yeah.
Yeah, the old bikes, folks. That's a tricky one. It's a wild world out there, man. You got to keep your head on a swivel.
Yeah.
I want to jump to the point. Super Bowl has came and went. We're just going to switch now.
Yeah.
I want to talk about greatest. That's what sparked the greatest of all time.
About.
So in the greatest DMs of all time. If you have any good DMs, when we post this up on Instagram, leave in the comment section like the best DM
I've ever gotten.
Because like ours are relatively tame because they're either coming from podiatrists in Florida or they're coming from like really forward people with open relationships. But I could not imagine being a female.
No.
And like the DMs they must get. Because there's no subtle way to approach it. The ones that start off very like cordial, because I've read a few, like we have friends that are popular in the fitness space and females on the internet, and they start off very cordial, and it's like it's the shift in tone is so stark, and you're just like, wow, how did it start here and end here? But if you have any good DM stories, put them up in the comment section on this Instagram post up on the RX Radio IG. So that was my greatest of all time. Yours was carry a mile.
Yeah,
I'd rather crawl through fucking the trench at Shawshank than carry another man for a mile on my back. Because he's not wearing clothes, right? Like
no.
That's a foregone conclusion with that inquiry. Yeah. It's like, this guy's ass naked. No. But Super Bowl came and went. We have a new conversation now about greatest athlete of all time.
Okay.
Brady. Thoughts?
Are we saying, like, in their sport or of all athletes
Well,
of all
and
time?
so this is where I struggle with this conversation because it's like – there's so many. First off, I think you need to define athleticism, right? Mm-hmm. No one ever defines athleticism in a meaningful way. And I think once you start to look at athleticism through different facets, your favorite athlete is just how you rank the facets of athleticism, right? So whether it's leadership, whether it's actual physical prowess, whether it's, performing in the clutch, I think when you break it down like that, it can be easier to compartmentalize who's the best. But maybe let's do it this way, because obviously the conversation around best athlete of all time actually has nothing to do with the physiological attributes as we know athletics to be, like speed,
not if Brady's in the conversation,
right? Speed, power, agility, strength, acuity, rhythmicity, all these things that we attribute from like a physiological perspective to being a good athlete, in just dominance in their sport. Jordan, LeBron, Gretzky, Tiger Woods. I don't know what else comes to mind.
Jordan, LeBron, Tiger Woods, Gretzky, Serena Williams would come to mind.
Okay, Lundy, who you got? Well, what about the male side of that? Rafa, Nadal,
Federer.
There's too many football players to name. Like, there's just you're a good quarterback, good defensive player.
Okay,
it's kind of like what you guys are talking about. It's depending on what you put like highest in your ranking system.
Well, I think football has to be quarterback, right? As far as like if the athleticism conversation greatest of all time is pure like imposing dominance over, like an ability for someone to just take over the game, right? Like a punter is never going to be the best athlete of all time. They can't take over the game based off that criteria in order to control a game.
Yeah, I mean, you get Rodgers in the mix, you get Brady, you get I don't really like the older guy. It's a different game. That's the other thing is you go eras
across generation.
It's messing me up now. I can't even think.
But what about outside? What about baseball?
Jeter.
You a Jeter?
I mean,
baseball never enters into the conversation.
Juice or no juice?
Juice. Come on.
Ken
Get the
Griffey.
fuck out of here.
I think all baseball players should be on juice.
See, I feel like Griffey, from a pure athleticism standpoint, Griffey holds weight. Griffey had fucking wheels, man.
Yeah, dude.
But I think my list for ability to control the game, I mean, Gretzky's got to be up there. I would put Gretzky and Ovechkin. Ovechkin, I saw this one video once where he was on the bench. He grabbed a guy on his team, threw him on the bench, jumped on the ice. He saw a play before it happened and hopped on the ice and scored a goal. That's an acuity and a mentality around the game, if that's how we're defining it in this category. But then it also comes down to this idea of like strong versus weak link sports. Right? I think that's a conversation that never gets happened when we start to talk about greatest athletes of all time. Like, basketball is a strong link game. You throw
1,000%.
You throw D Wade and LeBron on the court. It's like guess who's bringing the championship home to Florida? Like obviously that's going to win, but you could put Ronaldinho, Messi, Pele on a roster, but if you got the fucking sweeper, Killian Hamilton holding it down in his fucking short, it's like you're gonna get exploited all day, right? A lesser roster, soccer falls to the weak link, where something like basketball ascends to the strong link, right? So I think, I don't know, for me, an ability to control the game, I think Brady's got to be up there now.
Yeah, and I don't know, because like this is the hard thing when you go sport to sport, right? Like I'm not going to argue that Brady isn't the GOAT in football. But then you look at football itself and you look at what organizations has he been a part of? Who has he been surrounded by?
Right.
But he obviously left Belichick and still won. So I guess there's an argument that he still is great.
Then you go, all right, to your point about sports, individual versus team, because Phelps has to be in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Right? Bolt has to be in there.
I was going to say, those are my big three. My big three are Serena Williams, Phelps, Usain Bolt.
Okay. See, I think for physical attributes, as we think of athleticism from maybe a more scientific perspective, those three would probably make their way in there.
Serena Williams had a kid, came back, and dummies people all day long.
Yeah, she's just different, man.
And that's an argument no one's having when we have this athletic conversation. She's a mom. And this is not me dissing moms.
No, for sure. But it's like, imagine, okay, hey, you got to take 9 months off, put on 30 pounds, come back after what we can call a major
traumatic surgery.
Right, and then come back. Yeah, no, I think.
And then dummy people that were babies when you won your first title.
Yeah. Her reign over female tennis is unparalleled.
I wouldn't play against her. You ever seen that picture when she was dating Common? It looks like he's walking 10 feet behind her.
She's got the angle. He
looks like a zip. He looks like a zip tie, and she's a pair of off-whites.
Yeah, she's a unit.
She's
probably one of the most. And here's the thing: if you've never been in a sport where something moves at 100 miles an hour. Like we drive 100 miles an hour every now and then, especially shouts out Florida. Everyone drives like 160 miles an hour. But it's like if you haven't seen a projectile coming at you
at that speed,
that's different.
Yeah.
Like that's a different game because it's like now it's you can be if she has bigger quads than me, but like to be able to react and like return and return faster, like that's insane. It's all I never considered tennis, or at least never considered her in that conversation, but I think that's definitely worthy of mention. More so, I don't want to say more so, but like as justifiable as you can say Brady, as justifiable as you can say LeBron or Jordan. Yeah, she's an absolute freak of nature.
And I think and then what I look at in sports too is like, do we define like the GOATed athletes as only those who are the most winningest, or those who change the game?
Okay, now define change the game.
Like Allen Iverson would be a great example.
Okay.
Allen Iverson, statistically not very good. Shit shooting percentage in the 30s, couldn't hit a three, never won. But Allen Iverson changed like the one spot in basketball.
Yeah.
He created this like versatile ball handling, like shooting the mid two jumper like that. He defined, and what we see as the point guard of today is definable via Iverson then.
Yeah, I mean, you could make an argument then like Michael Vick, right?
100%. There's no Cam Newton if there's no Michael Vick.
Yeah, the game wouldn't allow for it, right? Like once you had kind of the double threat.
There's no
QB,
tuck and run. Yeah,
no.
Vick, Donovan McNabb on the Philadelphia Eagles with Terrell Owens. That was a dynamic duo that changed the shape of the game.
Yeah, and I think that's always my favorite conversation is like, because if anyone's ever played a team sport at the very least, there's always the second man. There's always a Pippen or a Kukoc, right? That made that guy. Like, whether it was like an enforcer playing with Gretzky or with or like Malkin and Crosby, right? Like would Crosby be Crosby dishes the rock. Like Crosby gets more assists than most of the top scorers get goals, and he gets more goals on top of that. But he's got to someone's got to, if he passes the puck to someone, they have to put the puck in the fucking net. Right? So duos are also another conversation I think is worth having. If we're just counting championships, it becomes kind of empirical now, right? Like Brady's got to be up there, right? He's got 7 rings. He has more than some teams have.
Yeah.
Like Brady alone, he's like the state of California. The state of California is the 5th largest economy, or at least it was, the 5th largest economy in the world.
Yeah.
It's like him alone is a stand. And I think the fact that he was able to move teams from, and in football too, it's not like switching ping pong partners.
No.
Right? Like you gotta rally 50 plus guys on a roster. Like
and football is like, in a lot of ways, almost similar to what basketball used to be, is like dynastic in nature, right? Like this is a team that's built year upon year to be that team, right? It's not as much as basketball maybe is today, or in hockey in some ways, where like you see these people switch at a high rate. Like Belichick is the Patriots. The Patriots are Belichick. That unit moves as one. So like you see Brady there for so long. In a sport that's so dynastic in nature, to move from one team to the next and still be that guy is huge, right? Well, I think that's the Peyton Manning argument. Like, can we talk about Brady without talking about Manning, even if he didn't win? Like him and his brother, influential.
Influential in changing the game?
I think in a lot of ways.
I don't know, man. I've never heard a good argument for having Manning on the take as far as best ever.
I don't know. It's hard though.
Yeah, I don't know. I think for me, I'm not a big football guy in general, right? Because I think now maybe to steer the conversation more towards the dynamics of athleticism. Right, like who is the most capable human being when it comes to output, when we think of those skills of athleticism or those tenets, strength, power, and agility, endurance, all of these different physiological manifestations that athletes have in certain capacities based on certain sports. Who is the most capable human being in the world? As far
Usain Bolt.
You think?
100%.
Okay.
Because he's tall, because he's literally the fastest thing to ever exist on the planet Earth.
Yeah.
And if you wanted him to be good at a sport, he's got it.
But he's kind of one-tracked, though. Like you think. So hold on. Here's the argument, and I've had this with Junta before. And Junta thinks that his cauliflower ear, potato eating Midwest ass could take LeBron in a wrestling match.
No.
It's like, dude, you'd get fucking pimp slapped.
No.
Yeah, but I don't think Usain Bolt has the capacities to coordinate and like you threw Usain Bolt to basketball, he's not figuring it out.
You don't think so?
Okay, is Usain Bolt going to be as close to LeBron at playing basketball as LeBron could be at running like a fast 100?
A fast 100 or Usain Bolt 100?
Well, you think do you think Usain can do with a ball what LeBron can?
It's a skill thing, though.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I feel Bolt is such a specimen for the sport that he dominates that to think that he's multifaceted.
He was one of the greatest cricket players in Jamaica.
Yeah, but it's cricket. We're talking about sports here. What
Still
are we doing?
Still
Yeah,
different
no,
sport.
I can't with cricket, man. I lived in Australia for 6 months.
But I mean, that's the thing is like, do we know? Did he ever have another implement in his hand?
Sure.
So let's move it more close to what he could do because basketball is a completely different dynamic.
Right.
Usain Bolt, soccer player.
Absolutely not.
100%.
No way. No chance. Really? You think
if Usain Bolt had the gifted nature that he has,
right,
but put all his energy into playing soccer with the same determination, dusts people.
Really? Think
dusts them.
Now, like, are we saying he'd crack like a FC Barca roster? Or are we saying he'd be like C-Cap, Ronaldinho, Cristiano Ronaldo?
I think he could have been a Ronaldo.
Really?
For sure,
That's
man.
so interesting to me because it's hard because cultural, like, why is it? Like, this is an epigenetic argument, right? Like, your genetics put a bullet in the chamber, but your training pulls the trigger. Your environment pulls the trigger. Why is it that this small – have you been to Jamaica? You been to Jamaica? Dude, it's a great place. I've been there a handful of times. But it's odd. Like, it's odd that to think as you drive through Jamaica that this place is, for whatever reason, turning out the fastest human beings on the planet. Like, is it the fuck? I don't get it. Like, what about this place? Is it environment? Are they at a different altitude? Like, is the sand something special? Like, that's crazy to me. But I don't know. I don't think, or you could say the same thing about Europe. Like, why is it that Brazil turns out as many soccer players as they do? Right. So how much of it is like, I think when we see superlatives in their sport, especially when it's individual sports, it's a perfect combination of the right caliber bullet in the right size chamber with the right person pulling the trigger. Because everyone in Jamaica is like, especially now, like that'll be set into being for generations because there's Bolt, because there's Asafa Powell, because there's Johan Blake. Right. You know, Johan Blake has got his own fucking, like, I think it's a Hublot.
Yeah.
Dude, he's got his own Hublot, and the design on the face of the watch is based off of how his fingers present when he runs. It's like, man, I'll never be that good at anything that they're going to design a Hublot based off of how I do it. But I don't know. It's always hard to normalize and find a common denominator in which to equate all these two. But I think it's always interesting to have the conversation of like what do people value in athleticism, right? Like, can we talk about CrossFit? No, why not?
I'm gonna cancel that,
dude. I don't know, man. Like when it comes to pure athletic ability, like as far as coordination, endurance, pain, dude. What about cyclists? Right, like part of athleticism is handling pain. Cyclists and mid-distance runners, Prefontaine. I put Prefontaine up there, and like Prefontaine's a tough one because he was never the most winningest, right? But from a mindset perspective, it's like, I might not win, but you're going to have to bleed to beat me.
Yeah.
You know, the best pace is a suicide pace, and today feels like a good day tonight. It's like, dude, you're running around a circle. You're doing foot NASCAR. What the fuck is going on?
Turn left.
But it's just, if I respect anyone that can approach that level, or I can respect anyone who approaches an endeavor with that level of intensity, right? So the mindset conversation around athleticism, but I think sheer output, mid-distance or a long-distance cyclist, like Tour de France.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to look at Lance. We're going to throw Lance in there. I feel like Lance got a fucking rough go, man.
No, but
go.
Lance got a rough go. He didn't, because he's a piece of shit.
What do you mean?
No, dude, take drugs. But have you ever seen the documentaries on Lance?
No.
just dumping people.
What do you mean?
All of the interviews from everyone on the postal team, like on the U.S. postal team.
Really?
Just saying he was a piece of shit, was going behind their back doing drugs, indemnifying people by making them do drugs to get on the team against their will, or they were cut if they wouldn't do the drugs.
Lundy verified?
Sounds right.
Sounds right. Beauty.
There's like, I think I
We
can't
don't have internet.
I can't remember. There's a documentary. It was on Netflix. There's like 3 documentaries on Lance, but him as a person,
Yeah, eh?
he's a bad person. I'm going on record. Like, I don't care if you're a Lance fan.
Sure.
Lance is a bad person.
And dude, his cameo in Dodgeball was clutch. Though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I like.
I'm not against the drug conversation. We talked about this before. Dude, baseball?
Yeah.
Dude.
Fired up.
Juice them all up.
Yeah, go
Dude,
right over
Mark
that
McGuire, turkey neck,
I loved
swing
it.
for the fences.
Shout out Greg's on.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I struggle with not including him just because of the feat. Like, let's just talk about the feat, like showing, like throwing a shot put, throwing a javelin, high jump. Like, how difficult and how much coordinated strength do you need? Decathletes.
Oh,
Have you ever seen biathlons? Have you ever seen this beauty?
Oh, is that the gun one?
It's the James Bond Olympic.
Yeah.
Like, it's a James Bond tryout for the next 007.
The cross-country ski and shoot? Are you
That doesn't
crazy?
make
Why is
it.
that even a
Dude,
sport?
But I can't. Remember when we were shooting tannerite with ARs on the side of the road in Florida? Like, I couldn't control my breath. I had to walk 10 foot back from the target. This guy's just fucking skied across the Pyrenees, and he's got to pick off a target from 100 yards out. I don't know.
I think it's funny, like what's kind of coming to light in this conversation when we talk about these goated athletes is what we look at, I think, is you have 2 qualities. You have some epigenetic makeup that makes someone good for the sport that they do, but probably could make them versatile across sports. And you combine that with whatever intangible led them to become the best. Like Kobe Bryant, RIP, shout out 24/8.
Right.
Kobe Bryant, arguably one of the greatest basketball players of all time, most influential basketball players of all time.
Sure.
He called his trainer once, and he said, listen, man, I need to practice. Like, we need to go to the gym. And the trainer's like, all right, I'll meet you there tomorrow morning. And the trainer's like, I knew Kobe has crazy work ethic. So I showed up at 5:30 at the gym. Kobe was drenched in sweat. He'd been there since 3 a.m. shooting.
But so you're calling that an intangible?
That's you
don't think that's genetic?
Dude, 99 people aren't going to do that.
Right. But
Kobe's going to do that.
And that's the hard part, man. Like, I think genetics code for work ethic.
Yeah, like that could be it as well. But I think that's like, even if that's genetic, then that is the epigenetics of the greatest athlete. But just give them a utility.
Yeah. Well, maybe too. Like, and this is something that I think is unanimous across all good athletes. Is there's a mental attrition as Kobe exhibited, but there's a physical attrition, right? Like D Rose. Well, but let's look at the other side of the spectrum, like D Rose, right? Like, he's fucking Samuel Jackson in Unbreakable. Like, this guy's made of fucking glass. What is his Achilles made of? Porcelain? Like, what is this guy doing?
And 2 years ago he threw up 60 in a game?
Yeah, but no team will touch him now because he self-implodes. Right? So how much of it is 99 guys won't, or 99 of 100 won't do what Kobe did and do the fucking 2 a.m. gassers, but maybe what if 95 did and 4 didn't survive and there's just one Kobe left? I think that's really, and that's the Russian Olympic team model of molding athletes. It's just a numbers thing.
Yeah. Let's
put a sifter out of stress and let's see who's left at the end of it. Because I think, and there's something to it. You hear stories about the Chinese weightlifting teams. You hear a story about Russian gymnastics. And so we're going to take a bunch of 4-year-olds.
Cuba.
Right. Yeah. We're going to take them from your family and we're going to put you through the ringer and we're going to come out with, there's a polished diamond in there somewhere that's going to get hardened under time and pressure. And maybe that's it, right? Maybe that's how we find it. We can sit back and talk about the smart ways to do it. And you can make the guy in, lane 6 a little bit faster. But that guy in lane 1 is there for a reason. Like that guy in the middle lane, the guy on top of the podium, it's almost to the point where what do you tell kids? Like, if you're not, Sidney Crosby knew at the age of 14 that he was Sidney Crosby.
Yeah.
Right? Like, he started working with Andy O'Brien. I've spoken with Andy about his time with Sidney, and they still work together. But it's everyone knows, right? Like, everyone, and we grow up around kids like fucking Wilson there, out in LaSalle. This kid was dusting everyone in baseball, dusting everyone on the ice, dusting everyone in football. I was like, all right, well, what do I want to do? Take your pick. But he's not, I don't know, he's not like, I'm trying to think of like one of the greatest, he's like wide receiver, who'd be the greatest wide receiver of all time, or running back or whatever. Like he's not a Barry Sanders or anything like that. He's not necessarily a household name. But it's, in defining these characteristics, it's like, I think attrition might be one of the ones that's most overlooked. It's like, who can just
survive?
Take it? Yeah, like LeBron. 100. And I think that's because the game is bigger now. James Harden wasn't playing in the NBA in 98. There was no Hardens around, right? Like, who were the big guys in the NBA back in the day?
Well, you had, like, all your staples, right? So if you look at that, like, 2000s era, you would have had, like, the Wallaces.
But that was late 2000s, right?
Well, it was like mid 2000s, but
Jerry Stackhouse, maybe Stackhouse on the Pistons. He was big.
Yeah, like you had Rashid, you had Ben, you had
Shaq.
Yeah, like Kemp would have been like falling out at that time too. You'd have like Mutombo, but you look at a different game now where it's not that everybody is bigger, but that bigger players are better at the game.
That's scary.
So it's filtering out the smaller players.
Sure.
They're not finding bigger guys. It's bigger guys are just deciding to be better at their game, right?
Dude, Dustin Byfuglien reported to camp one year at 280. Can you imagine 280 on ice? That's a fucking wrecking ball. That's insane.
I think at one point Sean Kemp was weighing over 260 in the NBA and dunking on people.
Yeah, that hurts. That guy comes down on your ankle, career over. I don't care if you're D Rose or you got adamantium Achilles.
You seen Shaq in the gym doing chest fly on the cable machine?
No.
Basically yanking the free motion off the ground.
That's hilarious.
Like that guy's a unit.
Yeah. And I guess that's really and big guys never really entered into the conversation of greatest of all time.
No.
But I think they should in the sense that they're a filtering process. They're the bosses that keep that prestige. They're the dragon that holds that gold egg. Because it's like, look, Gretzky's got to navigate around fucking. I don't know, who'd be like Donald Brashear. That might be a generation too late. Or he's going to navigate around maybe like a Scott Stevens or something like that. Like there's someone
Stevens, Pronger,
dude, ready to fucking stand you up on the blue
Probert.
line. Oh, dude,
shout out,
man.
Shout out Southern Ontario,
Probert. Homie, man. I was a block away from I live a block away from where they had his funeral, man.
Yeah.
Like that guy was a dangerous dude on. But how many guys? I always remember when Scott Stevens got Paul Correa with his head down.
Yeah.
Dude, what the hell? Northbound on a southbound freeway. Paul Correa could have cured cancer. You don't have two brain cells rubbed together to make a third anymore. But that's part of the game, right? These are the gatekeepers to excellence in the sport, right? Like there's Paul Amalu. There's a few guys that could have been earmarked for greatness where the flying fucking Samoan, he gets the running start before the ball snaps and he's airborne before the ball's even in the fucking QB's hands and he's just going to murder you.
Yeah, dude.
Like you're already into next week. And like we haven't even talked about mixed martial arts yet. How many guys just got clipped? Right? Just took one on the chin and was like, man, that guy could have been it.
Yeah.
That guy could have. And we see it, dude, not even in the professional ranks. How many kids do we knew growing up that got hurt, right? Like, I got redshirted my second year, NCAA, tore the ACL. It's like, this kid had such promise, you know? And sometimes it's what you tell the kid so he doesn't feel bad. But other times it's like, I remember some kids. Do you remember? So Lundy and I went to the same high school. I remember watching Matt Ward run a sub 5 minute mile with Harpaul Majal's fucking shoes on and a dart in his mouth. Yes. And it's like, this kid was in the 10th grade wearing fucking harp shoes that were like 2 sizes too big, had a fucking dart in his mouth. It was like watching Vince Vaughn hold the Iron Cross all day, baby. And it's like, what about this guy? Right? How, like, I don't think we've scratched the surface of the greatest of all time in any because our filtering process is there's too many people not getting a shot.
Yeah.
There's too many people not getting a look. There's too many people who are getting hurt. So, there's too many people who don't have the resources. I think in the next 100 years, man, we're going to look at 958 as the fastest 100, 1919 is the fastest 200 and we're going to be like, man, they're moving at snail space.
Yeah.
Or whatever Phelps' records and all that. I think once you start to see where the wheels fall off in the conversation of greatest all time, it's like, man, if we can start to fix even a few of these and we can get a few more people sifting through this process, like we're gonna see a major change in the landscape of sports.
But I also think about it, like Lundy brings up that great point of like you look era to era and like what might have made great players great, and like you're saying, it's like, but does someone need to come before you? And unfortunately, do they get knocked out of the argument? Like, I don't think Jordan would have never not been, like, obviously in contention to be greatest of all time in basketball. But did it take Jordan getting bullied by the Pistons and beat up to be arguably the greatest of all time in basketball? Like, did he need to go get beat up on the court, to go get jacked and build that resiliency, to like lose the idea that he was invincible?
So like you need a catalyst.
Yeah.
Right. And maybe the catalysts are worth a shout out in the conversation.
Yeah. Like how many players went head to head with Kobe as their dream and Kobe stared them down and talked shit to them? And what did that game do for their career?
Right.
It's Iverson going head to head with Michael Jordan and Iverson crossing Jordan, breaking his ankles. Because Iverson looked at Jordan and went, I don't know who the fuck you are.
Right.
And just crossed him. And Iverson remembers before the game being so nervous to play Jordan, but he was like, the minute I got on the court, I was like, fuck this, I'm crossing him.
Yeah. I don't know. The catalyst conversation is an interesting one to have because I think there's so many unsung heroes in sports. Like there's so many people like, and even like I think, and that's one of the reasons I like Prefontaine, is if you ask any athlete at like the top of their game, I would say the most represented inspirational athlete of all time for people cross-discipline would likely be, and maybe I'm reaching because he's one of my favorite athletes, but his story reached me, and fuck if I know anything about running. I would run a mile, run fucking 5, whatever the fuck. Like I don't want to do that, but that mindset of kind of like what you said with AI, of like, dude, like I'm second them on the court. I don't give a fuck who you are. We're breaking ankles here.
Yeah.
So I think there's so many like catalyzing people. There's so many catalyzing personalities that are worth at least an honorable mention that never get a shake, right? They never get that day in the sun, but they're as important to the equation as anything else, as a catalyst is. So, you know, we can see the final result. We can see that reaction, that summation of the skill of that, but what made that possible, right? So like, I mean, I struggle with Tiger Woods being on that list. Personally, yo, did you see that car accident he got in?
Brutal.
We talk about that for a second.
Yeah, his legs destroyed.
Actually, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, he went like a hospital in LA. They had to put pins in and fucking titanium.
Well, he's definitely the worst driver of all time.
He's definitely the worst Formula One athlete.
The worst Uber guy to get in the car with, man.
Could you imagine Tiger behind the wheel? That's not a 5-star rating.
His ex-wife threw the passenger side.
Right? Would she take a Titleist to the spokes? What was he driving?
He was actually driving like one of the Genesis rental cars for that like tournament that he was hosting.
Oh my God.
Was he driving a Hyundai?
He was cruising for sure. Like unless he fell asleep or was just flying down the road or was fucked up.
Dude.
They said he didn't have any like alcohol or drugs in his system, but who knows?
That thing was mangled.
Yeah.
Dude, disintegrated. That's
insane. He had to have been going a clip, bro. Like I saw it was like yesterday, 2 days ago.
I don't know.
He was flying.
But that's the thing I struggle with. I struggle with golf as a sport that he can even enter into the conversation.
But have you played golf?
But that's the thing, right? Have you ever done math? Have you ever done math?
It's very skill based as opposed to like being an athletic person and mental. So what we decide to put on the pedestal of like the best attributes of a human, that determines us. Like, so you could take like Bo Jackson and Deion Sanders and be like, they played 2 professional level sports. They played in the NFL. And they played in the MLB. Are they the best ever?
At the all-star level.
Yeah.
Bo Jackson in both.
Yeah.
Deion Sanders took a helicopter to the game.
Yeah, that's what dude. Kobe used to take a chopper to fucking Staples. You're not sitting in LA traffic trying to get to the game. No way.
R.I.P.
Yeah, dude, the Kobe combo's tough, man. Like I don't want to fucking slander. Like he was definitely a fun athlete to watch, but you know, athletes' behavior on the field or off the court goes away pretty quickly when they die young. Do we not forget about some of the allegations that Kobe had against him? And again, like I don't want to throw shade and I don't want to fucking get heat back to this, but like if you're going to sit here and fucking torch Lance, I'm sure there's some chicks in some bar bathrooms that are saying a different story. I'm just saying.
The Kobe thing was thrown out.
Oh, so we're just ignoring the court of public opinion? Yo, OJ got like that case got thrown out. That glove didn't fit, and we did a quit.
Dude, I never said the juice wasn't the best.
Hey, no cell phone cameras, so
yeah.
Yo, that's the real different generation, right?
Well, like that's the Wilt Chamberlain argument. Like, was the scorecard how many baskets he got or how many chicks he slammed? Like,
he was the stilt.
I don't
know what stilt we're talking about here.
But I don't know, but like, dude, that's a whole other podcast. But that's the idea of like the artist versus the person.
Right.
Like Chuck Berry invented rock and roll.
Okay.
Chuck Berry's also transporting underage women across state lines and putting cameras in bathrooms at fried chicken restaurants. Is Chuck Berry not the father of rock and roll? What are you going to cancel him out? Is it Little Richard now?
Yeah, dude. So that's the thing. It's funny. I have this argument with my mom all the time because she's such a Michael Jackson fan. Right, but there's Michael Jackson, the artist, and then there's Michael Jackson, the Macaulay Culkin, right? Like, and that's, it's hard. And as an athlete, or failed athlete, or former athlete, or never was, it's like you want to be able to separate it because there is a certain level of dedication that, and to a certain point, when you see the people ascend to that level, it's like maybe this is just a side effect of being the best. Maybe that no one can fight it. Like, I want to think so badly that Tom Brady has got bodies in the walls. That they're going to find out he's just Ed Gein motherfuckers.
Dude.
Hold on. Did we talk about this? Has no one ever discussed that Tom Brady dropped an N-bomb on TV and everyone act like it never happened?
Yeah.
How good is this guy? I think in your ability to skirt social scrutiny, that's it. He wins.
He also kissed his son on the lips.
Right
he's
a
a lip kisser of the children.
Ed Gein. What are you, Joey B? Like, get the fuck out of here with this lip kissing kid shit. Come on.
I can't go to him after that.
He weirds me out,
naked
bro.
massage kissing incident.
He's sponsored by Uggs. Done. You cash in your GO.A.T card when you get like the fucking moleskin slippers or whatever the fuck. Like,
I don't know.
I want. The thing is, like, I want Brady to be the best. You gotta have an edge. The thing about Tiger, and albeit like not my favorite, at least he had an edge, right? Like, he had something.
Yeah. Yeah,
it's just weird to me.
A crazy dad.
Brady's too perfect. I think that's what it makes him unlike. It makes him unlikable. It makes him not of kin, right? Like, he's not even a person. And if you ever talk to anyone from Mass, anyone from the American Northeast, they do treat him like a god because he does seem to have, like, I would say his ascension as an anonymous, omnipotent creature when it comes to sports is unparalleled. Because he's so unreachable. Both, like, he doesn't, I was sitting here eating avocado ice cream, talking to Gronkowski, ha ha ha. It's like, no, you're not. Yeah. Fuck you, you're not. Sitting there on your fucking $300 ice foam roller making TB12 money? Like, get out of here. What are you actually doing at night, bro? Yeah. Like, what kind of 50 shades of fucking Brady you got going on in that house? Like, I need him to be more real for him to be the greatest. And I think if he did exhibit that, I think in my mind it would solidify him as the greatest of all time. But he's not a human being. You know what I mean? He's too proper. He's too, like, he doesn't exhibit any quality of any character trait that comes as a side effect of being world famous and untouchable.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, I find the quarterback argument for greatest athlete of all time very hard because, like, if you're a quarterback, you're a golfer to me. Like, it's skill-based. You're protected by a lot of guys who put their lives on the line. And when I look at what Brady does, and it's like, what does he have, 7 championships? Okay. Serena Williams got like 23 titles. Is Serena not better?
But how many titles do you get a year versus how many championship shots do you get a year? Right? She can win the Grand Slam and win 4, right? You go Aussie, French.
But if we went year for year, she's been winningest for a longer period of time.
I mean, I don't think the argument stands because it's like in a golf, like, to say quarterbacking is like golf. It's like, yeah. Dude, if I'm in a foursome and I'm like Fred Couples, Tiger Woods, Vijay Singh, and fucking what's his name, the drunk guy, John Daly.
Yeah,
it's like if I'm VJ,
the drunk guy.
And if I'm VJ, I gotta post up and I gotta make sure fucking John Daly doesn't take a run while Tiger's working the short game. He's chipping from the rough. It's like, that's a whole different game, right? Like, best ball means something totally different if you got to block out John Daly's drunk ass because he's trying to take Tiger Woods' head off from the fucking...
But I think that falls on the system with which Brady lives in, right? Like, he's got dudes who are laying their life down to make sure that he can throw that ball. He's got a guy on the other side of that ball catching it.
Right.
So where does he land in the greatest
here's the
athlete
thing.
of all time? I think he doesn't exist.
Dudes, but tell you what, those guys who are taking those licks on the front line are taking more licks for Brady than anyone else because they got faith that homie's fucking taking him to the promised land.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you're behind center and I'm fucking protecting you and I gotta put my faith in Killian to get us to the Super Bowl. It's like, I just saved myself a head injury on that one. It's like, you take one for the team. So like to inspire and rally that number of players on a roster, I think is worth. But to me, like I don't enter in Brady necessarily the best of all time because he's not a human being. Yeah, is maybe that does make him the best of all time. But for me, it's like, why him? Why is he so different? Why is he not descended to some sort of, there's no news story. There's no fucking driving your Hyundai Genesis into the stratosphere. Like there's nothing. He's perfect.
I think like this conversation could obviously get me banned from the internet, but like I think it's also like within the sport that he plays, who he is. And what you said is all of these acts, these social, in some ways, atrocities that are inadmissible somehow in the court of social opinion, that he gets away with, that have allowed him to be who he is. Okay. Drops the N-bomb, says a bunch of weird shit in another interview.
The MAGA shit. Let's talk about
I was just going to say, the MAGA stuff with like Trump, the kissing his kid on the lips. Take another athlete in another sport that maybe is not held up by a dude like Goodall who's got everything behind him as to be a guy who's maybe not the most socially responsible. Yeah. It's like he's in a sport insulated by guys who want Brady to be the best.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
But I think he's also in the perfect position to be in a country who needs that. Like Brady has been chosen to be a god. Yes. And again, like you talk to anyone from New England and they're just the dumbest people to talk to. You try to talk slower, and Tom Brady is to them a god. And they've been sold this idea that he is, and maybe he is. Maybe he's every bit as Ned fucking Flanders as he comes off of the internet. But it's like, dude, when you're dropping the N-bomb with the A, and that's what you're doing coming down the tunnel?
Yeah.
What's going on behind closed doors, man? Like, and I just be that guy. Like, I want to know that guy. I want to know that because he's unattainable to me. Like, I don't get, he smiles. I'm like, those are fucking caps or veneers. Nothing about you seems real. You're Tupac at Coachella. Like, you're a projection. You're not a real person, Like, he has every other duck in a row, but there's no blemish in that. There's nothing woven into the Brady tapestry that goes, there's no Cindy Crawford mole on the nose going, oh, yeah, that's a blemish that actually makes you more attractive as an athlete. He's just too perfect. I don't know. I don't like it. So, quick, based off of your standards, greatest athlete of all time.
Athlete?
Just off your standards, with no other prompting, because this is the whole argument. Go. He's got a finger up.
Serena, Usain, Phelps.
In that order, or just as ascension on the top?
In that order.
In that order? Okay, interesting. Lundy, you got someone?
Phelps and Bolt get out.
See, my brain just gets into a pretzel because I think of like just what you were talking about with Brady. Him elevating his team is like, you can't buy that. Mm-hmm. Nobody else can do, like, if you see Brady or you have Brady behind you playing quarterback, you're like, I'm the best fucking wide receiver in the league right now with that guy there. Yeah. You throw even like a Matt Stafford or like a mid-range quarterback, it's not the same mentality as the guys playing. So as far as that goes, do I think he's the best athlete? No. Do I think he's the greatest athlete? Yes. But there's a big dip. For me, it's just a fuck. And then you think like, okay, you got Floyd Mayweather who's just doesn't lose and makes billions of fucking dollars. Right. Is he the best athlete? Is he the greatest athlete? Too many things for me to choose.
So Lundy's throwing up boats versus goats. Best athlete of all time, greatest athlete of all time.
I think there's a distinction of it.
I think I gotta go. Prefontaine. I gotta go Iron Mike.
Yeah.
Iron Mike's got to be in there, and I gotta give it to Wayner. Just Wayner, just defining the game, and I'm Canadian. So I think those are my top three, greatest of all time. Interested to hear what you guys have to say. Throw out your greatest of all time on the Instagram post. Do me a favor. Because we've had a theory that like people who listen don't necessarily subscribe to the podcast.
Talk to them in that camera.
That
there.
camera, hi.
Right to their face.
I can literally do the Jon Stewart thing. Now meet me at camera 2. Subscribe to the podcast at Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, wherever you guys do that. Because I think the downloads don't necessarily we download pretty well. I think, but I think we get tagged in way more shit than I actually see downloads in. So it's like if you haven't yet, subscribe to the podcast. We appreciate it. This watch the iteration of this studio come to life. We're not gonna have the saw sink in the background. Maybe we will.
We might.
Maybe we just fucking take it and like post it up on the wall.
I think it's like a metaphor for washing our hands of whatever bullshit we say on this thing.
Yeah, this is
just
where we're
wash
gonna
my hands of it and leave.
We're gonna baptize ourselves from the fucking murder sink. All right, that's it for this week. I don't know. Do we need anything to close?
No,
that's it. All right, cool. Till next time, guys. Appreciate it. Subscribe, all that fun stuff. We'll see you next week.